Hi kids, it's Mrs. Nazarian and Gus. We're here to do lesson number 4 with you, reading lesson with character study using Cinderella. Gus has been really excited. This is his favorite book that we're going to read today. It's a Native American Cinderella tale. And Gus, do you want to get it? Okay, Gus is going to fly away and get the book for us. Oh, is it too heavy, Gus? Uh-oh, here it comes. Oh my gosh. Okay, thanks, Gus. So it's called RoughFace Girl. And like I said, it's a Native American Cinderella tale. And what I want you to think about today, we are going to think about the Cinderella character and think about her physical traits, the way she looks. While we're reading it, we're also going to think about the RoughFace Girl and what her personality traits or her character traits are. Okay, so let's continue that kind of thinking. And the last book that we read, we compared the sisters. They were twins, Manyara and Nyasha. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to think about the relationships that RoughFace Girl has with the other characters in the book. We can learn a lot about a character when we think and study how they behave and what their relationships are like with the other characters in the book. All right, so it's going to be fun. Okay, Gus, he's going to fly away right now. And will you come back? Actually, he was going to, I think he's going to fly up on my shelf and listen to the book from up there. Remember, he's a little bit camera shy. Okay, bye, Gus. He's a little tired. He's a little cranky from all this quarantine. But he's doing good. This is a very old book. I've had it for so long, so look. Ugh. But I'm going to try to keep it together. Okay, RoughFace Girl. Oh, one other thing. Do you remember our Cinderella story recipe? We have to fill this out too when we're done reading. All right. So we're going to think about, is the Cinderella character kind? Are the siblings mean? Is there something lost? Does the Cinderella character go from poor to rich? All right. We have a lot to think about while we're reading. I need my glasses. This has interesting illustrations, so I'm going to be sure to show you the illustrations while I'm reading. The RoughFace Girl by Raphael Martin. Oh, David Shannon is the illustrator. Maybe you know David. I think is a book that he has written and illustrated. So maybe you're a fan of David Shannon. I think I got to get rid of the cover. Once, long ago, there was a village by the shores of Lake Ontario. Off from the other wigwams of this village stood one great, huge wigwam. Painted on its sides were pictures of the sun, moon, stars, plants, trees, and animals. And inside this wigwam, there was said to live a very great, rich, powerful, and supposedly handsome, invisible being. However, no one could see him except his sister, who lived there too. Many women wanted to marry this invisible being, but his sister said, only the one who can see him can marry him. Oh, if you look closely, I wonder if that's his sister. She's pulling back maybe the deerskin door there. Now in this village there lived a poor man who had 3 daughters. The 2 older daughters were cruel and hard-hearted, and they made their younger sister sit by the fire and feed the flames. When the burning branches popped, the sparks fell on her. In time, her hands became burnt and scarred. Her arms, too, became rough and scarred. Even her face was marked by the fire, and her beautiful long black hair hung ragged and charred. And those 2 older sisters laughed at her, saying, "Ha! You're ugly, you rough-face girl." And they made her life very lonely and miserable indeed. Ooh, so this page gave us a lot to think about when we're thinking about their characteristics, right? So I think these are the 2 older sisters. And this is the youngest sister who they called RoughFace Girl. So the older sisters were cruel. And the younger sister looks like she had to sit by the fire, and all of the sparks from the fire had burnt her hair and her skin. One day, these 2 older sisters went to their father and said, "Father, give us some necklaces. Give us some new buckskin dresses. Give us some pretty beaded moccasins. We're going to marry the invisible being." So their father gave them these things. Dressed in their finest, the 2 girls marched through the village. All the people pointed and stared. "Look at those beautiful girls," they said. "Surely they shall marry the invisible being." And if those 2 girls were proud and hard-hearted before, they were even prouder now. They walked haughtily through the village. At last they came to the wigwam of the invisible being, and there was his sister waiting. Oh, so they had their fancy new clothes on, and they're ready to meet the invisible being. Oh, here's the sister. I know, something about her says she doesn't look very impressed. "Why have you come?" she asked. "Well, we want to marry the invisible being," they answered. "That's why we're here." "If you want to marry my brother," she replied, "you have to have seen him. Tell me, have you seen the invisible being?" "Well, of course we've seen him," they insisted. "Can't you see how pretty we are? Can't you see the beautiful clothes we wear?" "Oh, yes, anyone can tell that we've truly seen the invisible being." "All right," she said quietly. "If you think you've seen him, then tell me, what's his bow made out of?" And suddenly her voice was swift as lightning and strong as thunder. I think she's protective of her brother. Maybe she also knows that the sisters were lying. They are pretty, but I don't think on the inside. His bow, they stammered in surprise. His bow, oh, we know. But turning desperately to one another, they whispered, "What shall we say? Let's say it's the oak tree." So they said, "It's the oak tree." "No," said the sister of the invisible being. "No." Oh, she saw at once how they lied. "Tell me," she continued, "if you think you've seen my brother, the invisible being, then what's the runner of his sled made of?" Oh, we know," cried those 2 sisters. But whispering feverishly again, they wondered, "What shall we say? What shall we say? Let's say it's the green willow branch." "No," said the sister when she heard. No, you have not seen my brother. Now go home. Just test us fairly, they exclaimed. We've seen him. Just don't ask all these silly questions. All right, said the sister of the invisible being. Come with me. And she took them back to the great wigwam and set them in seats furthest from the entrance, the guest seats. Soon they heard footsteps coming along the path. Then something stepped inside. Though they heard breathing, the two sisters still couldn't see a thing. Suddenly, a great bow and a beaded quiver of arrows appeared in the air and were set down. But that night, they never saw a thing more. And in the morning, they had to go home ashamed. Ooh, they look a bit startled. So let's look closely. I see the bow. Oh, and there's a bag of arrows. But I don't see the being. The next day, the RoughFace Girl went to her father and said, Father, may I please have some beads? May I please have a new buckskin dress and some pretty moccasins? I'm going to marry the invisible being, for wherever I look, I see his face. But her father sighed. Daughter, he said, I'm sorry. I have no beads left for you. Only some little broken shells. I have no buckskin dress, and as for moccasins, all I have left are my own old, worn, cracked, and stretched out pair from last year, and they're much too big for you. But she said, whatever you can spare, Father, I can use. So he gave her these things. Then she found dried reeds, and taking the little broken shells, she strung a necklace. Oh, you can see it on her right there. Do you see it? She stripped birch bark from the dead trees and made a cap and a dress and leggings. Then, with a sharp piece of bone, she carved in the bark pictures of the sun, moon, stars, plants, trees, and animals. Do you see all the pictures? She went down to the lake shore and soaked the moccasins in the water until they grew soft. Then she molded them to her feet, but they were still too big, and they flapped like duck's feet as she walked. Then all the people came out of their wigwams. They pointed and stared. Look at that ugly girl, they laughed. Look at her strange clothes. Hey, go home, you ugly girl. You're never going to marry the invisible being. But the rough-faced girl had faith in herself, and she had courage. She didn't turn back. She just kept walking right through the village. As she walked on, she saw the great beauty of the earth and skies spreading before her. And truly, she alone of all in that village saw in these things that sweet yet awesome face of the invisible being. Can you see the invisible being? Look at the illustration that David Shannon drew. You see the eyes and the nose and the mouth. At last she came to the lake shore just as the sun was sinking behind the hills, and the many stars came glittering out like a fiery veil in the darkening sky overhead. And there, standing by the water's edge, was the sister of the invisible being. Now, the sister of the invisible being was a wise woman. When she looked at you, she didn't see just your face or your hair or your clothes. No, when she looked at you, she would look right into the eyes and she could see all the way down to your heart. And she could tell if you had a good, kind heart or a cold, hard, and cruel one. And when she looked at the rough-faced girl, she saw at once that though her skin was scarred, her hair burnt, and her clothes strange, she had a beautiful, kind heart. And so she welcomed her dearly, saying, "Oh, my sister, why have you come?" And the rough-faced girl replied, "I have come to marry the invisible being." So the invisible being's sister had this special gift of seeing people's character. She was able to look beyond what their physical trait and their clothes, what they look like. And she was able to see into their heart to see if they were kind. Can you do that? I bet you can. "Ah," said the sister very gently now, "if you want to marry him, you have to have seen him. Tell me, have you seen my brother, the invisible being?" And the rough-faced girl said yes. "All right then," said the sister. "If you have seen him, tell me, what's his bow made of?" And the rough-faced girl said, "His bow? Why, it is the great curve of the rainbow." "Ah," exclaimed the sister in excitement. "Tell me," she asked, "if you have seen my brother, the invisible being, what's the runner of his sled made of?" And the rough-faced girl, looking up into the night sky, said, "Oh, the runner of his sled? Why, it is the spirit road, the Milky Way of stars that spreads across the sky." "Ah," cried the sister in wonder and delight, "you have seen him. Come with me." And taking the rough-faced girl by the hand, she led her back to the great wigwam and sat her in the seat next to the entrance, the wife's seat. Then they heard footsteps coming along the path closer and closer. The entrance flap of the wigwam lifted up, and in stepped the invisible being. And when he saw her sitting there, he said, "At last we have been found out." Then, smiling kindly, he added, "And oh, my sister, but she is beautiful." And his sister said, "Yes." So they both could see past her burnt hair and her scarred skin and could see that she was a beautiful person. Now the sister of the invisible being then gave the rough-faced girl the finest of buckskin robes and a necklace of perfect shells. "Now bathe in the lake," she said, "and dress in these." So the rough-faced girl bathed in the waters of the lake. Suddenly, all of her scars vanished from her body. Her skin grew smooth again, and her beautiful black hair grew in long and glossy as a raven's wing. Now anyone could see that she was indeed beautiful. But the invisible being and his sister had seen that from the start. Then, at last, the rough-faced girl and the invisible being were married. They lived together in a great gladness and were never parted. Okay. Oh, that's a good story. I can see why Gus likes it, and it's his favorite Cinderella story. It is pretty good. All right, let's fill out our Cinderella story recipe. Can you see it? Oh. Here, how if I move it over here? There we go. All right, so I already wrote in the title of the book. It's RoughFace Girl. And the Cinderella character is kind. She is really kind. The siblings are mean. What do you think? Yeah, I agree with you. They were mean. Something is lost. Was there something lost in this Cinderella story? I can't remember. I'm going to do a little picture walk to remind myself of all the parts. And I have to say, no, there was nothing lost in this Cinderella story. No, I'm going to skip and not give that one a check mark here. The Cinderella goes from poor to rich. Well, yes, because remember, her father was very poor, and then at the very beginning, it says the invisible being was powerful and rich. I'm going to just check. I'm going to go back and look for the evidence there. Oh, I found it right here on the first page. It says, and inside this wigwam there was said to live a very great, rich, powerful, and supposedly handsome invisible being. So he's rich. So when she marries him, she also becomes rich. All right. Now, before we started our lesson, we talked about character study and how one way to get to know the characters of a book is to think about their relationships with the other characters in the book. So I made this chart. This is called a character web. And you can see I put the RoughFace Girl in the middle here. Oh, I'm going to move my fairy godmother. Can you see it? The RoughFace Girl is here. This is the older sisters. Here's the father right here. The sister of the invisible being. And then this is the invisible being. I misspelled it and then I had to fix it. Okay, so let's think about her relationship with the sisters first. So we don't know very much about it. The book didn't go into a lot of details other than, do you think that the sisters, how did the sisters treat the RoughFace Girl? Not very good, no. So I think that they were rude and mean and made fun of her and made her feel bad. And I also think that she had to do a lot of work and she didn't get the nice things. They got the nice things. Remember, they had like the fancy dress and the beads, and then she didn't really get anything nice from her dad. So she probably felt bad about herself and even about the relationship she had with her sisters. It probably made her sad. I'm only saying that because it would make me sad. Let's think about her relationship with her father. What do you think? Do you think her father loved her? Oh, there's my dog. She asked her father for some beads and some material to make a new buckskin dress, and he had already given them all away. to the older sisters. So that may have hurt RoughFace Girl's feelings, but it didn't say that in the book, so we're not really sure. He did give her everything that he had, so I do think that he loved RoughFace Girl. And she probably loved him, but we don't really know. Now, how about the sister of the invisible being? She met her, and I think I got the impression that the RoughFace Girl, and the sister of the invisible being, maybe they respected each other. It says here, I'm going to go back to the page to find the evidence, but it does talk about how the RoughFace, or the invisible being's sister, believed the RoughFace Girl and knew that she was honest and had a good heart. Now, the RoughFace Girl and the invisible being, they had been seeing each other all along, and I think that they liked each other very much, and it said that in the book here. Because when the sister said, "Oh, have you seen my brother?" Remember, she'd seen him in the stars. She's seen his face in, remember that? Oh, no, that's the sister. Wait, there it is. She saw him everywhere she looked. There in the clouds. So, now what I'd like you to do in your own reading, hopefully you're going to read today, right? Well, be sure when you're reading your books and you're reading about your favorite characters, I want you to think about their relationships with the other characters in the book. Maybe they have friends or family members that are also mentioned in the book that are characters. Think about how they get along with the other characters, how they behave with the other characters. And it's just another step of understanding the characters in the books that you're reading at home. Okay, until next time. Oh, Gus wants to say bye. Here he comes. Oh, he's flying over. Gus, you want to say bye?